All right, from the shores of the North Saskatchewan River, right here in sunny, scenic Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. Straight over to my next guest. This is Do You Know Jack, the podcast, and on the line with me is Uriah Heep, vocalist Bernie Shaw. Bernie, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing okay, mate. I'm in Kansas City, Kansas right now. We've got a show tonight at a place called Knuckleheads. In between the shows with Priest, we're doing some of our own headline shows. So tonight is one of those nights. But hello, Prince Albert. I remember that town very, very well. From back in 1977, 1978.
Oh yeah, you've got a bit of a history with these parts.
Absolutely, mate. Late 70s, the prairies were rocking, and I was very much a part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what? One thing that, of course, often comes up is, you're a fellow Canuck, of course, in more ways than one. Being that you're from British Columbia, did you grow up a fan of the Vancouver Canucks by any chance?
I did indeed. Yeah, because I was born in Victoria, so born and raised on the island. And Canucks was the team, definitely.
Yeah.
I should say Victoria Cougars, but they didn't last very long. I think they got bought out by somebody down in L.A.
Yeah. It's a hard knock life being a Canucks fan, though. They seem to, have a good team every now and again, but just can never quite seal the deal, eh?
No.
Well, listen, you're not on the line with me to talk about the Vancouver Canucks, though. I mean, you've got a very exciting tour that is, underway with the mighty metal gods themselves, Judas Priest, who are celebrating a 50th anniversary of sorts. But, so is your act, Uriah Heep, 50 years in, man. That's incredible.
Well, the band was actually named and Uriah Heep as it was in 1970. So we're actually going to have our big 50th next year.
Oh, right.
Even though Mick had got some friends together, they were still called Spice at the time.
Aha. Makes sense. So, just given the fact that you're on, a pretty decent sized tour, I mean, does your tour prep, how does your tour prep work when you're getting ready for something of this magnitude, Bernie?
Well, we've already been on the road most of the year because of the release of our newest album.
Uh-huh.
And that's pretty well. The other parts of the world, all across Scandinavia, Europe, Russia, we've been doing our own headlining stuff. But to come over to America and open up for Priest, it's as you say, they are the metal gods, and it's experiencing us and exposing us to a whole new rock audience that not necessarily might come to see us on the venues that we're playing. They'll definitely come to see us at a 4,000 or 5,000 seat venue.
Yeah. So then, how do you guys go about, playing to probably a crowd that has, several thousand Judas Priest fans? I mean, of course, the name Uriah Heep is in the collective consciousness of rock and roll as well. But, what is a Uriah Heep show going to look like when we hit up the SaskTel Center this Saturday, June 8th?
Well, I mean, we take the stage as it's our own because it is. They've given us an hour, which is a really good amount of time for an opening act.
Yeah.
Usually, between 30 and 40 minutes. And, for that hour, the stage is ours and the crowd is ours. And no matter how ardent a Priest fan they are, it only takes about 3 songs, 4 max, before fists are in the air. And by the end of the hour, they're saying, come on back. So, I've been promising them as many times as I can as next year for our 50th anniversary when they come to America and hopefully Canada.
Yeah.
That we'll be playing some of the same venues.
So now 25 studio albums and, probably 2 or 3 different eras of the band, vocally, what's your approach, Bernie, when you tackle, such an extraordinarily massive catalog?
It's very, very difficult. I am the 5th singer, so there's 4 other guys behind me, all very, very accomplished singer-songwriters and voices in their own right. So when we sit down and start picking a set list, it's a little bit daunting because there's so many good songs throughout almost 50 years.
Yeah.
And we try and cover each decade as much as we can and as faithfully as we can. Vocally, it's not a problem. My range is one of the reasons Mick picked me up 32 years ago, was my range can cover any of the songs that David Byron could sing, or John Lawton, or John Sloman, or indeed Pete Golby.
Yeah.
So I was pretty lucky that my range, and that's a lot down to the touring across Canada in club bands, that my range was quite diverse like that.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned now, of course, Living the Dream came out, I think back in September, if my information is correct. So, given the fact that this is a new studio record, I would imagine now you're sort of in cycle for this. So, I mean, how many tracks off of this latest record are going to, or have made it onto the set list thus far?
When we're headlining, 6.
Uh-huh.
We like to give a good portion as we can in our own live shows. So in between, the classic songs like Gypsy and Easy Livin' and Stealin' and July Morning, we still managed to put 6 off of Living the Dream on it. So it's working out pretty good.
Yeah. For sure. Well, I mean, it's an absolutely fantastic album, and of course, as I mentioned off the top, I mean, you've been with the band since about 1986. I mean, how has your role evolved as vocalist for Uriah Heep over the years, and where do you fit into the process in terms of writing songs, Bernie?
Well, I've never been much of a songwriter. Again, Canadian music scene. When I was growing up, we were always pushed to do whatever was on the top 40 of the radio stations at the time. So my involvement is more on the production side and arrangement side. And Mick Box and Phil Lanson have got the writing of it covered so well that I'm quite happy with my part that I'm doing. Mind you saying that, I did write the lyrics for one of the songs on the Living the Dream, but it's the first song that I've actually written in quite a while.
So, the title now, I mean, of the record, like, is this a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, Living the Dream, maybe a little sarcastic or facetious? I mean, I would like, I mean, you are living the rock and roll dream, you know what I mean? But, where does the title fit in here?
Yes, it is a little, I guess you could say tongue-in-cheek. What people's vision of being in a rock and roll band for so many years and all that, it's a lot more luxurious in their mind than the reality of doing 120 shows in 63 different countries every single year.
Uh-huh.
That's thanks guys. I'm on the so what? No. Sorry, I'm trying. We're at the bus right now, guys. The reality of living the dream, and nobody packed my suitcase.
Oh no!
I'm doing the interview, and it's look out for yourself. There we go, living the dream. I mean, the reality is, a lot of the times is hanging out in airport lounges, and as I was just for half an hour, hotel lobbies. The reality is that the hour and a half to 2 hours that we get to play on stage, that's what you live for.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes getting to that hour and a half up stage, we can be traveling up to 26 hours.
What's the worst
we did in Japan just a few weeks ago.
What's the worst backstage catering you've ever had without mentioning a country or a name of a venue or whatever?
Backstage catering. Oh Lord. I akined it to dog food.
Oh no!
And it was in a little club in southern Germany. Even though I've had some of the best food in German catering as well, but there was a little club in southern Germany that we actually said, "Can we play anywhere else in this town?" Because they literally feed us like Purina dog chow.
Oh no!
But, and we are very much a band that lives on our stomachs.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to, because, we're traveling so much and we do so many shows. When we're on tour, we still do 4 and 5 shows in a row.
Yeah.
Which, for a band of our age and caliber, that's a heck of a lot playing, you know?
No kidding.
Especially when there's hundreds of miles usually in between each show.
Yeah.
But that's the way we've always done it. So the fact that you get, you know, you need good food. You know, you've got 7 or 8 crew with you and the 5 of us. You work hard, you play hard, you got to eat well.
Of course.
Because nobody's getting any younger. You can't live on hamburgers and chocolate bars anymore.
Well, and the voice is a very organic thing, right? I mean, it's got to be something that you know is well taken care of. So I would imagine having a proper diet is definitely part and parcel of that.
Absolutely. I mean, to keep myself in trim, I like to eat well. I like to sleep as much as I can in a non-moving bed. And I'm actually sitting on our tour bus right now. We pulled up to the gig. So we transferred from the little shuttle onto the big tour bus, and we'll be doing an overnighter tonight, actually heading due north to the Great White North.
There you go. There you go. What now? Given the fact that you're you know, Canadian born, I mean, you know, what do you look forward to most about getting to the Great White North, Bernie?
Well, it's been so many years since I've been in Saskatoon. I think actually the last time we went through was when I was with a band called Legend, who were a local band. Doug Hergott, Al Becarius, Billy, I can't remember his name, I'm getting too old. And the band I was originally with in Victoria was called Cold Sweat.
Yeah.
And we played all the way across to Brandon, Manitoba. That was usually our turning point to let's go back heading west. But I went to Saskatoon, Prince Albert, Regina, you know, many, many times. And I actually ended up living in Saskatoon for about 9 or 10 months.
Wow.
So I'm really looking forward to getting back. And I know the clubs that I remember are probably long gone, but I've already, through the internet, not through Facebook because I don't do social media.
That's fair.
Through the internet, I've managed to track down a couple of the guys that I used to play with and who I have not seen since 1978. So getting back to Canada and getting back up to Stoon is going to be a real mind boggle, you know. It's going to be really cool.
For sure.
I almost said something different there, but it's on. I think I'm on radio. So
Yeah. Well, now, you know, you mentioned, you know, well, there's quite a lot to unpack there, of course. But yeah, I mean, you know, one awesome thing about Saskatoon that I'm, you know, steadily becoming aware of is just how first rate the SaskTel Center is. And I've now been, this will be the second time, you know, getting up there, you know, so it'll be really neat to see you guys up there doing your thing as well.
I'm really looking forward to it too. I mean, the main venue when I was living there and playing there was the arena in the middle of town.
Yeah.
And I saw Black Hawk, Arkansas for the first time with Styx.
Wow.
And my favorite singer of all time, Sammy Hagar, on stage with Montrose. I saw a lot of really, really good concerts there. So I don't know if it's there anymore. I think the SaskTel Center probably is the new version of it.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to start treading the boards in some home territory, you know.
Yeah. Well, now you mentioned that you're not on social media, but I mean, that seems to be a major part of, you know, concerts these days, right? I mean, there'll be people up there probably when Uriah Heep's up that maybe even try to film the entire thing. I mean, what's your view, your own personal view on that sort of thing?
Personally, I'm not a lover of people that steal my show. You know, the audience pay good money to come to a concert and enjoy the evening and enjoy the event and the adrenaline and the energy. And for somebody who just thinks that they can waltz right in, get their little GoPro out and steal my show, because that is an infringement of copyright.
Yeah.
You know, I spent hours, months, years honing my craft as the whole band did, and we put everything into a show. It costs us thousands of dollars to put on a show with the production. When you think of, you know, it's $1,000 a day just for the bus, let alone the diesel that goes into it. at
Yeah.
6 miles an hour, and let alone the $150 a day just for the driver. You add everything, all the wages and all that up, it's a pretty big, monetary, financial, whatever you want to say, investment. And you get people waltzing in with their cameras and their GoPros, and they say, and just putting it up on social media. My personal view is I don't like it, but I have to embrace it, because at the same instance, it's a little bit of promotion. Back in the day, it used to be sold. You used to be able to buy bootlegs of. You probably still can.
Yeah.
But it's all up on YouTube now. It's a two-edged sword for me. I used to really, really dislike it. I used to stop the show and tell the people to get that camera.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard about Rob Halford just the other day, his incident.
That was the May 25th show at the Rosemont. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
We were there, and okay, maybe he took it a little bit too far, but I can sure understand the frustration, because you get into this, as a performer, you get into the moment, you get into the mood, and you don't come out of character until you walk off stage. And for him to get interrupted like that, and his space was invaded, in my opinion. This is only purely my opinion.
Right.
I don't think it was the right thing to do. Maybe he overreacted, but I can sure understand where it came from.
I would imagine now the frustration of maybe perhaps night after night, people getting maybe a little bit too cavalier with their devices probably gets to you after a while.
They certainly do. They don't know. I mean, they're getting carried away with the adrenaline in the evening as well.
Yeah.
But, there's a fine line. There's a bit of decorum. And in my opinion, there should be a little bit more respect to the band that you supposedly like and follow.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, now, taking it back quite a ways, one thing I never realized about Uriah Heep is you guys were the first band, Western act, to play in Moscow back in December 1987, like behind the Iron Curtain, like before Iron Maiden went and everybody else. I mean, you guys are trailbreakers in that regard. I mean, what's one or two specific memories that you remember or recall from those shows, basically right smack dab in the middle of the Cold War?
How big everything is there, and how gray everything was. There was no color. I mean, we went there in the typical right smack dab in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
And I'd only been in the band for 5 minutes. It was literally one of my first tours.
Yeah.
And, it was the Olympic Stadium, and we had, 18,500 people every night for 10 sold out shows. And halfway through the tour, the promoter said, "Do you want to stay to do another 10 more? Because we can easily sell the tickets."
Yeah.
I was like, "Are you kidding?" And Olympijski Stadium is a giant round building, and they literally cut it in half, and we were playing to half of the circle.
Wow.
On the other side was the World Junior Hockey Champions.
Huh.
And do you know who won that year? You should.
Was it Canada?
Because they were Canadian.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, you hear a lot of things about just security and stuff like that. I mean, did you experience anything weird?
The security was scary. There were KGB agents all around us. Some of them were young teenagers, but they were still part of the KGB, as they say.
Yeah.
We had 300 armed soldiers. So these are young kids with AK-47s, and not in front of the stage, because there was nobody allowed on the floor. So you imagine this building 3 hockey arenas wide, because that's how big it was.
Yeah.
And no one was allowed on the floor. You had to be seated. So around the periphery edge were 300 armed soldiers every night.
Wow.
And it took us about 6 shows before we finally convinced the promoters and the organizers, this is a rock show. They're not here for a riot. Put the guns away. If anything, you're going to instill a riot with all this, armament here.
No kidding.
So the last few shows, I'm very happy to report that it was just the soldiers there, and slowly but surely, they were actually turning around and facing the stage and enjoying the show as well.
Wow.
So it turned out really, really well. And because of that, I think Motley Crue were very close to being the second or third band. No, it wasn't. It was the Scorpions who came after.
Right, yeah.
Because they got mega global press out of it. But it was actually us that helped them get there, because their manager at the time was talking to our manager, asking, how did you do this? Because we want to go now too.
Yeah.
And now, Russia is a part of everybody's touring schedule. I've been there, I think, 22 times now since 1987. I've been literally from St. Petersburg, right on the west coast, northwest, all the way to Vladivostok, which is right across from the Japan Straits, and as far north and east as Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky,
wow,
which is just off of the Alaskan archipelago.
Uh-huh.
So I was actually closer to my mom's house in Victoria, BC, than I was to my own house in London.
Interesting. So, all of this aside, I mean, you're on this amazing tour and you're doing little, side headlining shows, and you've got Living the Dream, out there and working for you. I mean, are you guys a band that's always writing? Or do you have to be, stationary in order to get things done?
No. Mick and Phil have always said, painters paint, writers write, dreamers dream. There's no ifs, ands, or whens. When you get an idea for a song, it comes, be it musically or lyrically. They're always somewhere getting some sort of creative idea. It can come at any time, anywhere. It can come on an airplane on the way to a gig, or it can come in the comfort of your own house. There's no, creative people are just that way.
Of course.
And I don't know how many songs they have in the can right now, but I'm sure that the next album will be just as good, as long as we use the same team, of course.
Yeah.
Because Living the Dream did have a special power to it, and a sonic power that we haven't had for a long time. And we put that down purely to the new producer that we used.
Jay Rustin.
Again, I got to push Canada, because Jay Rustin's from back east. And, we used him for the very first time, and he has a very, very different format of recording that is different from ours that we've been using all these years. But we tried his way. It worked amazingly. And we walked in the studio one day with ideas, and we walked out 19 days later with a fully recorded album. All that had to be done was mixed and mastered.
Wow.
19 days. I can name you some bands, but I won't, that take longer just to tune the guitars in the studio. But I'm far too nice a person to say who they are.
Indeed. Well, listen, Bernie, it's been awesome chatting with you here on Do You Know Jack, and of course, I'm really stoked to see you guys, and of course, the mighty Judas Priest. This Saturday, June 8th, at the Sasktail Center. I think the concert time is set for 7:30, but given how the excitement and the buzz generated around this tour, I'm sure the atmosphere is going to be electric well before. So get out to the Sasktail Center early and be prepared to rock and or roll.
I have to say that if I know that it's the third tour for Priest this year, but they have put it all together for this tour. The whole brand new production. It's a brand new set list. I think they only kept one song from the last time they were out, and the fans have gone down just ballistic. It's a fabulous show, and they're different from us musically enough, so we don't tread on anybody's toes.
Sure.
They're treating us like true British gentlemen. We've got all our production with us. As I say, we get to play an hour, so you've got a good set of classic Uriah Heep from the 70s, including some of the tracks. Our opening track is Grazed by Heaven, which is the opening track off of the new album. So it's a seriously good night of rock and roll. It's 100 years of British metal and classic rock.
Well, anyway, Bernie, thanks a lot for just chatting with me here about all things Uriah Heep, man. It's been a pleasure and an honor, sir.
Absolutely, mate. Thank you so much for the call.
All right, and we'll see you Saturday.
Yes, absolutely. Come back for a beer, okay?
Right on. I'll see what I can do.
Okie dokie, mate. Cheers.
Yeah, bye-bye.